Hi, my friends and my students and everyone of the world. Welcome to my channel, Studies in English Literature and Language. And we post videos on English literature and language, and you all knows that those videos are extremely informative and critical. If you like our videos, please press the like button and also subscribe our channel in order to be connected with us and for receiving information regarding recent videos. Please subscribe our channel. Let's start our today's discussion. All know that Chaucer is often regarded as the father of English poetry, and his The Prologue to the Canterbury Tales is one of the gem in the cascade of English poetry. And the opening sentence of this prologue is extremely significant, and different Indian universities often set the question regarding the significance of the opening of the prologue to the Canterbury Tales. And now, in my discussion, I shall discuss what is the significance of this opening sentence or the opening 18 lines. Let's start. The opening of the prologue, you will find that the prologue begins in the month of April, and April is included in spring in the seasonal cycle. And the first 18 lines constitute the opening sentence. So the first sentence consists of the 18 lines, and this 18 lines has two equal parts, and each part deals with two aspects. So the opening sentence it consisted of 18 lines, and that opening sentence has two parts, and each part deals with different aspects. And what are the two aspects on which the opening sentence deals with? These two aspects are firstly the impact of spring, and secondly the holy or sacred duty of pilgrimage. Now I am reading that opening part with you. Kindly pay attention. The General Prologue, and this is the opening 18 lines, and I am reading. And you will find that the language in which Chaucer wrote the opening part is quite different from today's modern English. Let's start. One that April with its sour sooty, the bright dot of March had passed to the rooty, and bathed every vein in such liquor of which virtue engendered is the flower. And what is the meaning? That in the April month, that in the month of April there is sour, and that sour has regenerated the earth that has become dry in the month of March, and the moisture of that sour has passed into the veins, and as a result now there is blossoms in the trees. Next one, Zephyrus eke with its sweet breath inspired hath in every holt and heath the tender coppice. Zephyrus refers to the west wind. Now west wind has blown, and as a result of the blowing of the west wind, there are new leaves in the trees, in the woods. And the young son hath in the ram his half course ye run. Ram, it is the first sign of the Zodiac, Ram, Zodiac. So, what is the time? The sun has run the half course in the ram. So, sun is in the first zodiacal sign. So, up to this portion, Chaucer has described the impact of spring on nature. How different natural elements here they are represented by the trees have been regenerated. And what we are finding here that new leaves have come into the trees. Trees are in their blossoms. So, trees are regenerated. And next, Chaucer will describe how spring inspires the animal world. And here, the animal world is represented by the birds. And small fowls make a melody that sleepen all the night with open eye. So pricked him nature in her cottages. Fowls refers to birds. Him means them, her means their, cottages means huts. So what Chaucer is describing that small birds is making melody and those birds have slept the whole night with open eye because nature has inspired them. Nature has created turbulence in their mind to such a great extent that they have slept, but their eyes were wide open. So, how nature in the springtime has inspired the animal world represented by the birds is here described by Chaucer. And next, he will describe how nature has inspired, how the vernal season, that means spring, has inspired human beings. Let's see. Then long and flock to gun on pilgrimages and palmeras for to sicken staunch stondays to farne hollies cauthe in sondre Fondrai Londes, and specially from every sire's end of England to Canterbury they went. And so, what people do in this time, people generally seek on pilgrimages. That means people are inspired so much by the spring that they go on pilgrimages. And palmiers refers to the pilgrims. And pilgrims go on strange lands in and they visit the far off shrines, far off temples. Why they visit there? They visit there in order to seek the blessings of God. Actually, in the March that and before March, there is winter. So before the April comes in the England, there is winter in England, and in winter people are immobile. They live a kind of stationary life, but spring inspires them. Springs creates mobility in them, and being inspired by the mobile spirit of spring, they visit different lands. They become pilgrims and they visit different lands, different temples in order to have the blessing of God. And specially from every sire's end of England to Canterbury, they went. And specially they visit Canterbury. Why they visit Canterbury? Because in the Canterbury there is the sign of Thomas A. Becket. the Thomas A. Becket who had become martyr. The holy blissful martyr for to seek that him hath holpen when they were sick. Holy blissful martyr, that means holy blissful martyr refers to here Thomas A. Becket. And in Canterbury they went in order to seek the blessing from the Thomas A. Becket's shrine. The Thomas A. Becket who had become martyr. And why they go to Canterbury? In order to seek his blessing, and that blessing might help them in order to cope in this life, and that blessing might help them to recover their illness, and they also have sought that blessing from Thomas A. Becket when they were sick, and they are so religious that they think that this blessing of Thomas A. Becket might lead them into a kind of peaceful life. So they go on pilgrimages to the shrine of Thomas A. Becket in order to have that martyr's blessing. So, what we are finding in this prologue to the Canterbury Tales opening part, that means in a General Prologue's opening part, that this General Prologue's opening part is of 18 lines, and that 18 lines constitute a single sentence, because you will find that only one that they were sick, there is the full stop. Otherwise, there is either comma or semicolon, but there is no full stop. So, these 18 lines are a single sentence, and that single sentence describes the impact of spring on the nature, animal world, and human life, and how human beings, being inspired by that vernal season, they are going to seek the blessings of Thomas A. Becket at Canterbury, where Thomas A. Becket's shrine is located. Let's move on to the another part of my discussion, that is the significance of the prologue to the Canterbury Tales, of the opening part of the prologue to the Canterbury Tales. Let's move on. So, what the poet has described here? Poet has described the impact of spring, and how that impact of spring is here described. The impact is found on three aspects of life: on nature, on animal world, here represented by the birds, and on human life. And I have discussed in details what are the impacts while reading the text with you. Next, you will find in the opening part of this general prologue there are symbols. There are erotic symbols in the opening, and here the words like engendered, pricked, inspired, and others are symbolic of erotic energy and fertilization. And the birds that slept all night with opening eyes are also symbolic of erotic energy. They are connotative of eroticism. And what you will find in this part also, that April is just like a male force, and March was just like a female force, and April with its shower has made the dry March fertile. That means the dry land fertile. Earlier, the land was barren, there was dryness. But when April comes there, when April inspires that land, when April spigot that lands, there is blossomings, there is sprouting of leaves.
So there is regeneration. So April is just like the male force and March is just like the female force. Again, what you will find here is that April is just like the watery force and March is just like the dry land force. So in that spring season, there is a marriage between water and land. And again, what you will find that west wind represses the each and every element of earth during that season. West wind inspires new sproutings during that time, rejuvenates the woods. So the woods were earlier also there, but they were dry, they were arid. But west wind makes them rejuvenated. So, west wind is just like the male force, it's just like that energetic force. And so, what is here also, it can also be interpreted as a kind of marriage between air and land. Next, in the opening line, so what we are finding that there are two forces. Firstly, there is the erotic force, that means there is eros, and there is the thanatos also. Eros that pushes us forward, that means nature is pricked, people have become mobile, that is, they are going forward. And there is thanatos, that means the force that pulls us back, the force that stags people to the religious life, that makes people continue their yearly, daily intercourse of life. That means in each and every year they have gone on pilgrimages, and that Thanatos force is also guiding them to that same path. It is not leading them to break the routine life, it is just leading them to do the same conventional life. So, there is the force of eros, that means that inspires, and there is the force of thanatos that pulls us back, and there is a kind of balance in that opening section. You will find that there is a balance between eros and thanatos, and through this balance, what Chaucer is here preaching, Chaucer is setting the tone. Chaucer is telling us also that there should be a balance between eros and thanatos in our life also. Otherwise, life will not be life, it will become a kind of chaos. Next, what is the framework? In the framework, what you will find that there is a kind of tripartite structure. Firstly, the impact of spring on nature is described, then the impact of spring on animal world is presented, and then on human world's response is presented. So there is a kind of tripartite structure in the general prologue opening part. And what is the movement in the general prologue? At first, there is given the general or universal information, how nature is responding, how birds or animal world is responding, and then how human world is responding, how human world has become mobile, and then there is the specific information that they are going specially to the sign of Thomas Becket at Canterbury. So there is a kind of movement from general to particular. And one thing should also be noted while making our discussion on the General Prologue's opening section, and the thing is that Chaucer here has followed a kind of basic pattern of his times. During his time, it was the convention to open the poems in spring
And if you read some important poems by Dante, then by Boccaccio, you will find that the same structure has been followed. And there is this tradition even in some Latin poems also. And Chaucer has simply followed this tradition. So let's sum up the section. What we are finding in this General Prologue's introductory part, that there is the impact of spring on nature, on animals, and on human beings. Human mind beings' religiosity is here described, and the cultural context of the time is here presented, and there is the symbols, there is the symbolic structure, there are symbols of eroticism is here presented. One thing should also be noted here, and what is that thing? That thing is that the people of the time were extremely religious minded. They were devout people, and that their faith in religiosity is also been borne out here as they visit Canterbury, as they do pilgrimages during that time. It is just like the Amarnath Jatra of Indian community. It is just like the Gangatsagar Jatra of Indian community. And one thing should also be noted while discussing. Now, thank you. Thanks to my all viewers for listening to my lecture so attentively till the end. And if you like my channel, please press this like button and also subscribe this channel in order to be tuned up with us. Thank you. Thanks a lot.